Hello, everyone. Welcome to our After Hours Screen Talk. What we're going to be talking about today is The Long Walk. It's based on one of the novels that Stephen King wrote as Richard Bachman, and is actually the first novel he ever wrote, although not the first novel that got published. So it deals with a post-apocalyptic American society in which a series of young male contestants undergo this grueling walk without being allowed to stop. They are accompanied by a military unit that systematically shoots them dead anytime they drop below 3 miles per hour. At least it's 3 miles per hour in the movie. But what I wanted to talk about was what is so often the central topic when we're talking about a Stephen King adaptation, and that is what's the relationship between the book and the movie? How faithful is the movie to the book, and what's changed? We're going to do a non-spoiler review, so we'll keep any explicit details to a minimum. We're certainly not going to spoil the ending. Now, this film has been in development and in the planning stages for literal decades. Directors like George Romero and Frank Darabont have been attached to it, different screenwriters. Finally, production settled on Francis Lawrence and J.T. Mollner writing the script. So Lawrence is directing. Interestingly enough, I believe it's, let's see, Jeremiah Fraites of the Lumineers does the film score. So it's kind of an interesting little side note that we have a notable pop musician, alternative folk musician, helming this film score, and something that's increasingly done. You think about all the film scoring work that Trent Reznor has done, and a lot of other musicians have gone into film and scored films. And it's a great soundtrack, great film score. So that is something to note. It has an all-star international cast. Well, I shouldn't say all-star, but everyone who's in this film is a person of note. An international cast of British and American players. Cooper Hoffman plays the central role of Garrity, well supported by David Jonsson, who plays McVrees. The cast is rounded out by Garrett Waring, Charlie Plummer, Ben Wang, Joshua Odchik, and then Mark Hamill plays the Major, the enigmatic totalitarian villain that oversees the Long Walk. Jonsson in particular, I think, I mean, Hoffman is great, but Jonsson in particular, I think, is the true star of this film emotionally. The conflictedness that he brings to that character and the way he builds that character throughout the film. Just a stunning portrayal. Jesse, what did you think of the film?
Devastating, brutal.
Mhm.
Really, it works terrifically as a survival horror thriller set against this bleak dystopian American landscape. And just speaking in terms of like the scenery and the backdrop against which this brutal survival contest with these boys takes place. I mean, they are walking through abandoned towns and desolate landscapes to just like reflect the brokenness and like poverty of this dystopian futuristic America, persuasively showing what an authoritarian America could look like in the near future.
I think that one of the really interesting things about how grim and how dark this film is that as adaptations go, it's one of the more faithful ones. It keeps relatively close to the original King novel. There are a number of relatively minor changes and one very large change, but it definitely keeps the tone in the sense that if you followed King's career, you're a real Stephen King fan like I am. Early King tends to be much darker, much more grim, much more ruthless, and much more pessimistic than middle and then especially late King. He becomes increasingly lighter and more hopeful and less grim and dark, although that element, of course, never leaves his writing.
Yeah.
And we see that, I think, in full bore here. It's one of the grimmest films I've seen in a long time. I kind of came out of the movie theater in a haze of like, what have I just seen? Why did I put myself through this on a Friday night? What have I done to myself?
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I was
So
telling
yes,
you,
it is.
I mean, I was telling you
Yeah.
at my screening, uh, by the third act, audience members were sobbing uncontrollably. I mean, even
Mm.
I was kind of like, I didn't break tears, but I was like feeling the tension and it was hitting me like a gun punch at the end. But yeah,
Yeah.
people were like sobbing horribly, just breaking down in the theater. So
It'll be interesting to see how this film performs at the box office because it is so relentlessly dark that it's not necessarily like and it's not a film that I would think people are going to flock to see this picture, right? It's not like Jurassic World or something like that where you have a fun, big, dumb blockbuster on a Friday night. This is not that film.
I think this got a B cinema score so far,
Mm,
but
mm,
that's just at a quick glance of how the movie's tracking
mm,
with audiences and at the box office right now. So really well received.
Interesting that it's a B. Mm,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was in the 90% on Rotten Tomatoes as far as the critics are concerned, but the
mm,
audiences seem a little more lukewarm. But it speaks to what you bring up with this movie, how grim and dark it is. It's
mm.
yeah,
Well, it's interesting. I was thinking about like the split that you always see between critics and the audience. If something is really grim and dark and hard, the critics tend to like it more than a general audience will. So maybe we're going to see that here. I will say that like my father-in-law, this is the kind of film that he would look at and say, films like this should not be made. You know, this is not why I go to see a film. I don't really think films like this should even exist because it is so relentlessly dark.
yeah.
Um, I think we should talk about why it is so dark, though. It's a testament to how effective and how well made the film is. Because the reason it's so dark is that you really care about these characters. Mollner's script is great. He gives the actors chances to flesh out and develop their characters. He makes time for even the smaller supporting characters to come through and feel like real people. And so when they're taken from us in these increasingly brutal ways, and often humiliating ways, like cold, ruthless, humiliating ways that these characters die,
Oh yeah.
um, it just really does hit home. And it hits home because you've come to care about these characters, which I've got to say is a breath of fresh air for me. One of the things that I find myself so consistently disappointed by and souring on is that I often go to see films and just don't care about the characters. I don't care what happens to them. In horror films, that can work out very well, right? Sometimes I'm not looking to care about the characters. But a
Yeah.
film like this, especially Stephen King adaptations in particular, if you're a King fan, you know he's known for his character work. Character development is one of his strongest uh, skills as a writer. It's something he does very well. And if you're not going to bring that to the film adaptation, then you've really lost something.
Yeah.
And I think Mollner does a terrific job. The actors do a terrific job bringing these characters to life.
Yeah, I think one of the great things about this movie is no matter how different these characters are, they have different stories, backstories, but
Mm,
they share common histories and experiences because, these boys are chosen from a particular economic uh, background. They're
mm,
impoverished.
mm,
Well, like most of the American people at this time in this movie are suffering from horrible poverty, and that's why they're
mm.
risking their lives. They get a prize at the end of this, and they get their heart's desire. They can wish whatever they want, and they can wish for a pile of money to solve their money problems, financial struggles,
Well, they get a cash prize. I
or
don't
they
think it's
get.
ever said what the cash prize is,
Oh, okay.
or it may be, but I didn't catch what the amount is if they did mention it. And they get one wish. So it's interesting. There's a combination of just like a simple cash prize, like a moolah, lots of it. But then the wish, right? That's the really interesting part that there's like this idea that there's something harder to pin down, some kind of promise that you have at the end that isn't as, tangible because it has
Yeah.
to do with the desires and the specific backgrounds that each of the characters bring to the long walk.
That's interesting. Yeah. I refer to the characters as boys, although technically, they're not really boys. The actors are in their 20s. Maybe some of them are.
Well, they're boys. It's interesting because they're boys in the book. In the novel, they're still boys. They're definitely boys in the book.
Yeah.
So you've
Yeah.
got this idea of a post-war period that has just led to the absolute economic ruin and the cultural decline of America as a world power. As a dystopian film, as a post-apocalyptic film, this film is invoking a very common theme of these kinds of films, which is the interesting thing about dystopias and apocalypses is that they're grim and dark and horrible, and they speculate about what might become of the country or the world or people. But there's also these elements of uh, um, desire underpinning them, right? It's like, what if this happened? that means we wouldn't have this anymore, right? Imagine all the things that are happening in the world right now in this capitalist consumer society, and we're kind of like, in this point where we're navigating what it means to be living in this society. Do we believe in it anymore? Do we believe in the American project? Are we done with democracy? We're certainly, always raising questions about capitalism and consumerism and mass media. Um, and so it reminds me of something that the scholar Frederick Jameson said about dystopias is that one of the beguiling things about these films or these books, whatever they are, is that they comment on the idea that it's easier to imagine the end of the world than it is to imagine the end of capitalism, or it's easier to imagine the end of the world than it is to imagine the end of the system in which you presently live. And that's where these moments of, dare I say it, utopia come out, where it's like, what do you have that people no longer seem to believe in, and that we seem to be striving and really begging and hungry for, and that is community, this idea of comradeship with our fellows. And you have it in these young boys who come together and become the musketeers and support each other, even though it's supposed to be this, you know, last one to the finish, and you're ostensibly walking against all the others, and everyone's by themselves. But friendship prevails, community prevails, neighborliness prevails. So that's where we see these elements of promise. And so this is one of the paradoxes of these kinds of films and these kinds of books is that when the world falls apart, new formations become possible because the old systems have fallen away.
Mm.
Um, so
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting that we have that, and again, it's something you see in King a lot. You definitely see it in The Stand, for instance, probably most famously,
yeah,
and you see it in a lot of dystopian films. Interesting, Francis Lawrence, I forgot to mention. Probably everyone knows him best for his work on the Hunger Games, so he's no stranger to dystopias.
yeah. Makes me think of this writer Celine, who wrote the
Sure.
famously wrote that novel Journey to the End of the Night. And
Mm,
I'm not sure where he said this, but he said like if everyone in the world just sat down and took like a shit together, it would solve a lot of our problems, you know? Because
sure.
like that's,
Sure.
you know, as much as everything, whether it's our beliefs, ideologies, thinking, ethnicities,
Hmm.
backgrounds, and as much as that divide us, we all have to shit, eat, and sleep, and go to work and so forth. And and this movie really strips everything down to that raw level of existence where you're utterly exposed in those humiliating bodily moments where you're losing control of your body.
Yeah, something else prevails against this system of oppression, right? There's something pushing back against the brutality of the situation that they're in, and that is where these human moments come in. We
Is
haven't mentioned, by the way, in terms of supporting actors, Mark Hamill and Judy Greer. Um, we should probably talk about them.
Yeah, Mark Hamill, very menacing as the haunting authoritarian figure, the major.
Mm,
With Mark Hamill, at first I was watching his performance and thinking, is everything like a gimmick with Mark Hamill, just kind of changing
mm,
his voice because he's, such a veteran in voice acting that even when he's in a live action movie, he brings a voice acting performance to it.
mm,
And I'm thinking to myself, is that now becoming kind of a gimmick with Mark Hamill? But
mm,
and that was one of my concerns with the movie
mm.
and the casting choice of him in this role when I was watching the trailers. Now, when I watched the movie itself, um, I threw out all that behind me and just experienced his performance, and he's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I get exactly what you're saying, and I think it's a legitimate point of concern because, Hamill is always going to be hammy. He's always going to play whatever role he's playing to the hilt. It seems to be a little bit of revenge he's taken on having to play Luke Skywalker all those years back. Um, He's a great actor, don't get me wrong, but yes, there is definitely an element of caricatural gimmickiness there. I think it works because the Major as a totalitarian figure, just like real totalitarian figures, it's a matter of image, it's a matter of gimmick, right? Those are personas propagandistically established and built and maintained. So like who is the real Major? We don't know. We just get the gimmick. That's all he is to these kids on this long walk, right?
Hmm.
And that's all he's intended to be. You don't pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, right? The Wizard of Oz commentary on
Hmm.
totalitarianism, of course.
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Yeah.
And so I think it really works. The gimmick and the caricature work because that's how these strongman totalitarian cults of personality function.
Yeah.
And I think the gravelly, bombastic Hamill voice really works here for that. Because of course this is exactly what he is in this world. He's this bombastic, grotesque football coach, right? Essentially. Um,
Yeah.
come on, be tough. And then the last actor I wanted to talk about is Judy Greer. I mean, she's been in the business for a long time, well known for character parts, and I think really interesting. Somebody who I think of as known mainly for comedy. She mainly plays comedic roles, so it's really powerful whenever you play somebody who's basically known for comedy, place them into a dramatic role. It can be really powerful, and it's powerful here. So to see Greer as Garrity's mom, and she's stunning in every scene she has, right? And it's just like, is that Judy Greer? I could barely recognize her because I'm like, she's not being wacky and funny and sexy. What's happening here? It's like,
Yeah.
this is not the Judy Greer I know, and it's just completely devastating. So she's
Yeah.
amazing in a small but really crucial supporting role. So our ratings, I mean, I have to give this film 5 stars. I really do. I mean, I probably won't ever go see it again. It's too hard to watch. It's too devastating knowing as I know what's going to happen and like all these wonderful young, vibrant actors in the prime of their lives, and just watching them suffer and die, be humiliated for reasons that just don't add up. It's very hard to watch, but that's what makes it brilliant. It's memorable. The acting is incredible. Uh, the cast just glows.
Mhm.
It's firing on all cylinders. Are there nitpicks? Yeah, I always have nitpicks, almost always. But I've got to give this one 5 stars. It's a devastating, memorable cinematic event.
Yeah, I don't have many major criticisms. I think sometimes the themes a little overstated. Minor criticism. I think I would give this one for those reasons, just like a good 4.5 stars out of 5. This movie did exactly what it sought out to do and took me to that very devastating emotional place, where I was there with those characters by the end of it. So, it really, really did its job. So yeah, 4.5 out of 5 stars for this one.
All right, that's our review of The Long Walk. This is After Hours Screen Talk. It's great to be back. I've missed Jess. I've missed doing this. Please like and subscribe. Come back for more. Even if you don't, we'll keep doing this because this is fun for us. But we hope you have a good day, and we'll see you later.
All right. Be well. We'll see you next time here.